My name is Anthony. I'm 32 years old, and last week, at my own brother's lavish wedding, my mother looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't worth a dinner plate. Before I tell you how I walked out with a $10,000 check and left them screaming in the driveway, let me know where you guys are watching from in the comments. I read every single one. You know, there's a specific kind of silence that falls over a room when something truly embarrassing happens. It's not a quiet silence. It's a loud, heavy silence that presses against your eardrums. I felt that silence in the middle of a crowd of 300 people. It started the moment I stepped out of the taxi. The venue was the Whitmore Estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. If you've never been to Greenwich, imagine a place where the grass is manicured with nail scissors and the air smells like old money and judgment. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a coronation. My brother, Julian, was marrying Isabella Whitmore. The Whitmores are the kind of family that has a family crest on their stationery and buildings named after them at universities. My family? We're comfortable, but we aren't that. My father, Richard, was a mid-level manager before he retired, and my mother, Catherine, has spent her entire life trying to convince the world she's more important than she is. For her, this wedding was the Super Bowl. It was her arrival. I adjusted my tie in the reflection of the taxi window. I'd spent a good chunk of my salary on this suit. It was a navy Brooks Brothers suit, tailored to fit perfectly. I wanted to look the part. I wanted to make them proud. God, even saying that now makes me feel like an idiot. But when you're the black sheep, or maybe just the invisible sheep, you never really stop trying to be seen. The driveway was a parade of wealth. I watched a vintage Rolls-Royce pull up ahead of me, then a bright red Ferrari, then a Porsche Cayenne. The valet drivers were sprinting back and forth like they were in the Olympics. I paid my taxi driver, a guy named Sal who had spent the hour-long drive from Queens telling me about his sciatica. "Good luck, kid," Sal said as I got out. "Don't let the rich folks bite." "I'll try, Sal," I said. I walked up the gravel path toward the main entrance. It was spectacular, I have to admit. White roses everywhere. A string quartet playing something that sounded like Vivaldi. It was perfect. At the entrance, there was a heavy oak table manned by two young women with iPads and headsets. They looked like they were guarding the entrance to the Pentagon. Behind them stood a security guard who looked like he chewed rocks for breakfast. I stepped up to the table, smiling. "Name?" one of the women asked. She didn't look up. "Anthony Palmer," I said. "Groom's brother." I added that last part with a little bit of pride. I mean, I was the brother. That had to count for something, right? The woman's finger hovered over the iPad. She scrolled. Then she stopped. Her eyebrows knitted together. She looked at her partner. Then she looked up at me, and her expression changed. It wasn't welcoming anymore. It was pitying. "Oh," she said. "Mr. Palmer, right?" She didn't reach for the stack of gold, embossed laminates that were sitting on the table. Those badges had the guests' names printed in calligraphy. Instead, she reached under the table. She pulled out a plastic bin. Inside were a few gray badges on cheap lanyards. "Here you go," she said, handing me one. I took it. Felt flimsy in my hand. I looked at the text. Limited access guest, that was it. No name, no table number. Just limited access guest in a bold, sans serif font that looked like it belonged on a warehouse caution sign. "I'm sorry," I said, chuckling nervously. "I think there's a mistake. I'm Julian's brother." "Best man?" "Well, not best man, but family." The woman bit her lip. She looked over my shoulder, avoiding eye contact. "I have strict instructions, sir. This is the correct badge for you." Instructions from who? From the mother of the groom. My stomach dropped. Felt like I'd swallowed a stone. My mother? Yes, sir. She was very specific. I stood there, holding this gray piece of plastic while a couple behind me, friends of the Whitmores, clearly, waited impatiently. The man was wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car. "Excuse me," the man said. "We're late." I stepped aside, dazed. I clipped the badge onto my lapel. Clashed horribly with the navy suit. It looked like a price tag on a clearance item. I walked through the gate, my head spinning. Limited access. What did that even mean? Was I not allowed to use the bathroom? Was I not allowed to breathe the air? I spotted my mother near the fountain. Catherine Palmer was in her element. She was wearing a champagne-colored gown that sparkled in the afternoon sun. Her hair was piled high on her head, stiff with hairspray. She was holding court with a group of women who all looked like they shared the same plastic surgeon. She saw me. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. She excused herself and glided over to me. She didn't hug me. She didn't say, "You look handsome, Anthony." She reached out and flicked the gray badge on my chest. "Tuck that inside your jacket during the photos," she whispered. Her voice was low, a hiss that only I could hear. "Mom, what is this?" I asked, holding up the badge. The girl at the front said, "Keep your voice down," she snapped, smiling at a passing waiter. "We are at the Whitmore estate, Anthony. Do not embarrass me." "Embarrass you? I'm wearing a badge that says limited access at my own brother's wedding. What is going on?" She sighed. The kind of sigh you give a toddler who won't stop asking why the sky is blue. She took my arm and pulled me behind a large sculpted hedge, out of sight of the main guests. "Look, Anthony," she said. "This wedding, it's a very complex event. The Whitmores have a lot of obligations. Business partners, politicians, people who are very important to Julian's future." "Okay," I said. And space is tight. Extremely tight. The reception tent has a strict capacity limit. Fire codes, you know." I stared at her. "Fire codes?" "Yes. So we had to make some difficult cuts." I felt the blood draining from my face. "Cuts? Mom, I'm the groom's brother." I know, she said, patting my arm dismissively. "And that's why you're here for the ceremony. We wouldn't want you to miss the vows. That's the important part, isn't it? The spiritual union." "But the badge," I said. "What does limited access mean?" She looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then she leaned in close. "It means no plate, Anthony." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "It means you don't have a seat at the dinner," she said, her voice matter-of-fact. "You can stay for the cocktail hour, of course. There will be plenty of hors d'oeuvres. But when the reception starts, you'll need to, well, make yourself scarce." I couldn't speak. My brain was trying to process the level of disrespect. "No plate. No seat. You traded my seat?" I choked out. "For who?" "Some guy Julian works with. Mr. Sterling is the CEO of Julian's firm," she hissed. "It's crucial for Julian's career that he be there. And his wife. And their daughter. We couldn't just put them anywhere. So you kicked me out." "You're making this dramatic," she said, checking her reflection in her compact mirror. "It's not personal, Anthony. It's logistics. Besides, you wouldn't enjoy the dinner anyway. It's all French service and boring speeches. You'd be uncomfortable." She snapped the mirror shut and looked at me. "Just watch the ceremony, eat some shrimp at the cocktail hour, leave your gift, and then head home. You have work tomorrow, don't you? You're always complaining about work." I felt a hand on my chest. I realized it was my own hand, clutching the inside pocket of my jacket. Inside that pocket was a thick cream-colored envelope. Inside that envelope was a cashier's check for $10,000. $10,000. "Leave the gift," I repeated slowly. "Yes," she said. "The gift table is right inside the tent entrance. Make sure you put it in the box before you go. And Anthony, please try to look happy. People are watching." She flashed a dazzling, fake smile at someone over my shoulder, patted my cheek, a sharp, stinging little pat, and walked away. I stood there behind the hedge. I could hear the string quartet playing. I could hear the laughter of the guests. I could smell the expensive perfume and the fresh flowers. And I felt something inside me break. It wasn't a loud break. It was quiet. It was the sound of a cable snapping under too much tension. For 32 years, I had been the good son, the quiet son, the one who understood, the one who stepped back. But as I touched the outline of that check in my pocket, I realized something. I wasn't just a guest with limited access to a wedding. I was a guest with limited access to this family. And I was done paying the admission fee. To understand why I didn't just turn around and leave right then and there, you have to understand the history. You have to understand that in the Palmer household there was a hierarchy. It wasn't subtle. It was carved in stone. At the top was Julian, the golden child, the prince. At the bottom was me, Anthony, the spare, the afterthought. Julian is 3 years older than me. From the moment he was born, he could do no wrong. He was handsome, athletic, and charming in that superficial way that adults love. I was quieter, bookish, a little awkward. My father, Richard, wasn't malicious. He was just absent. Even when he was in the room, he wasn't really there. He wanted a quiet life. And the best way to have a quiet life was to give Catherine exactly what she wanted. If Catherine said Julian needed new cleats, Julian got the best cleats. If Catherine said Anthony didn't need a tutor because he's just not academic, then Anthony didn't get a tutor. It's hard to explain what it's like to grow up as the scapegoat to a golden child. It's not always big, dramatic moments. It's the death by 1,000 cuts. It's the fact that Julian's artwork was framed and hung in the hallway, while mine was filed away in the trash. It's the fact that when Julian got a C in math, it was the teacher's fault. When I got a B, I wasn't trying hard enough. But if I had to pinpoint the moment I realized I didn't matter to them, it was 2016. My college graduation. I had worked my tail off. I went to a state university because my parents said there wasn't enough money in the college fund for 2 private tuitions. Julian, of course, had gone to a private liberal arts college that cost $60,000 a year. By the time I graduated, the fund was dry. That was fine. I took out loans. I worked nights at a warehouse. I studied while my coworkers took smoke breaks. I graduated magna cum laude with a degree in accounting. I was proud. I was finally going to have a salary, a career, a life. The ceremony was on a Saturday in May. I had sent my parents the dates 4 months in advance. I reminded them every week. 2 days before graduation, I called home. "So, what time are you guys heading up?" I asked. "I made a reservation for dinner at that steakhouse Dad likes." There was a pause on the line. A long, heavy pause. "Oh, Anthony," my mother said. Her voice had that fake, airy tone she used when she was lying. "Didn't your father tell you?" "Tell me what?" "We can't make it, honey." I sat down on my twin mattress in my dorm room. "What?" "It's Julian," she said. "He just got that promotion at the brokerage firm. The junior analyst position. We promised him a celebratory trip to the vineyard. We've already booked the ferry." "But Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "It's my college graduation. I'm graduating with honors." "I know, and we're very proud," she said, clearly checking her watch. "But a graduation is just a ceremony. It's boring, really. You sit in the sun for 4 hours and listen to speeches. Julian's promotion is a milestone. It's his future. You understand, don't you? You've always been the understanding one." The understanding one. That was their code word for the doormat. "Yeah," I whispered. "I understand. That's my good boy. We'll send you a card." They didn't send a card. On the day of my graduation, I sat in a sea of black robes. I watched other students waving to their families in the bleachers. I saw fathers crying, mothers holding up signs. I looked at the empty spot where my parents should have been. I walked across that stage, shook the dean's hand, and took my diploma. No one cheered. No one screamed my name. Well, that's not entirely true. One person did. Aunt Sarah. Sarah is my mother's younger sister, but they are polar opposites. Where Catherine is vanity and ice, Sarah is warmth and earth. She's a landscape architect who drives a beat-up Subaru and doesn't dye her gray hair. She was standing in the back row, waving a frantic hand. After the ceremony, I found her in the parking lot. She hugged me so hard my ribs cracked. "I'm sorry, Aunt," she said. She was the only one who called me Aunt. "They're fools. Absolute fools." "It's okay," I lied. "It is not okay," she said fiercely. "But you did this. You, not them." Remember that. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, wrapped box. I know it's not much, she said. Business has been slow this quarter. I opened it. It was a fountain pen. Not a Mont Blanc or anything crazy, but a nice, solid, heavy pen. Engraved on the side were my initials. AP, for signing all those big contracts you're going to get. She smiled. I still have that pen. In fact, I used that very pen to sign the cashier's check for Julian's wedding gift. Why did I still try? Why, after the graduation, after the missed birthdays, after the constant comparisons, did I still chase their approval? Because hope is a dangerous thing, especially the hope of a child who just wants his parents to look at him. I thought if I just became successful enough, they would notice. So I worked. I got a job at a mid-sized firm. I worked 60-hour weeks. I got my CPA license. I started climbing the ladder. Meanwhile, Julian was failing upwards. He got fired from the brokerage firm for personality conflicts, which meant he was arrogant and lazy. He bounced around a few sales jobs. But in my parents' retelling, Julian was always exploring opportunities or consulting. When he finally landed a job at an investment bank, thanks to a connection of my father's, my mother acted like he had founded the bank himself. Julian is a visionary, she would say at dinner parties. Anthony is an accountant. Very steady, very safe, boring, invisible. Then came the engagement. Julian met Isabella at a charity gala. Within 6 months, there was a ring on her finger the size of a skating rink. My mother went into overdrive. This was it. The Whitmore connection. This was her ticket to the high society circles she had always been excluded from. We have to make a good impression, she told us at Sunday dinner. The Whitmores are old money, real money. We cannot look suburban. She looked pointedly at my Honda Civic parked in the driveway. Anthony, she said, you'll need a new suit for the engagement party. And a haircut. Go to Julian's stylist. I'll pay for it. I have a stylist, I said. And my hair is fine. It's mediocre, she said, sipping her wine. We need excellence. That night, as I was helping clear the table, because Julian certainly wasn't going to do it, I overheard my parents in the living room. Isabella's father asked about the boys today, my father said. Oh, my mother's voice perked up. What did you say? I told him about Julian's portfolio. He was impressed. Then he asked about the other one, Anthony. God, my mother sighed. What did you tell him? I just said he does tax returns. Kept it vague. I didn't want to bore Arthur. He's a titan of industry, Catherine. He doesn't want to hear about tax codes. Good, she said. Let's keep Anthony in the background during the wedding events. He doesn't have the sparkle, Richard. He's not a Whitmore kind of person. I stood in the kitchen holding a dirty lasagna pan. Not a Whitmore kind of person. That was the moment the idea formed. I was going to prove them wrong. I wasn't going to do it with words. I wasn't going to do it by arguing. I was going to do it with money. It's sad, isn't it? That I thought the only way to buy my parents' love was literally to buy it. But that's where my head was at. I decided I would give Julian and Isabella the most generous wedding gift I could possibly afford. A gift that would make my parents' jaws drop. A gift that would force them to say, wow, Anthony is successful. Anthony is generous. Anthony belongs. I set the number, $10,000. For a guy living in Queens, paying off student loans, and trying to save for a house, $10,000 was a mountain. But I was going to climb it. The engagement happened 3 years ago. That meant I had 3 years to save. I called it Operation Recognition. I broke down the math. To save 10 grand in 3 years on top of my rent, my loans, and my living expenses, I needed to squeeze every penny until it screamed. I stopped going out. My friends would text me, hey Aunt, we're going to the game. Or happy hour at O'Reilly's. I'd text back, can't make it. Work. I wasn't lying. I picked up a second job. During the day, I was a senior accountant managing audits. At night and on weekends, I did freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. I did taxes for plumbers, florists, freelance graphic designers. Anyone who needed a Schedule C filed, I was their guy. My life became a blur of spreadsheets. I lived on instant noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I canceled my streaming services. I canceled my gym membership and started running in the park for free. My shoes, a nice pair of Oxfords I wore to the office, developed a hole in the sole. Instead of buying new ones, I cut a piece of cardboard from a cereal box and stuffed it inside. I replaced that cardboard every morning. I remember one winter night, walking home from the subway. It was snowing, and the slush was soaking through the cardboard in my shoe. My toes were frozen numb. I was exhausted. My eyes were burning from staring at screens for 14 hours. I looked at the window of a travel agency. There was a poster for a beach resort in Mexico. Just $900 for a week. I had $4,000 in my wedding fund savings account at that point. I could have gone. I could have warmed my frozen toes in the sand. But I thought of my mother's face. I thought of the look she gave Julian, that look of adoration. I wanted that look. Just once. I walked past the travel agency and went home to eat another bowl of ramen. While I was starving myself, the wedding planning machine was consuming everything in its path. My mother was obsessed. She was constantly on the phone with planners, florists, and caterers. She was spending my father's retirement savings like it was Monopoly money. "We're paying for the rehearsal dinner," she announced proudly. "And the flowers. And the band. The Whitmores are covering the venue and the catering, of course, but we have to pull our weight." Pulling our weight apparently meant draining their IRA. About 6 months before the wedding, things started to get weird. It started with the family contribution talk. I was visiting my parents for Easter. We were sitting in the living room. Julian was there, tapping away on his phone, probably pretending to close a deal. "So," my mother said, clasping her hands, "the wedding is getting close. It's going to be the event of the season. Eleanor Whitmore told me the governor might attend." "That's great, Mom," I said. "We're putting together a family gift for the couple," she said, looking at me. "Your father and I are giving them a down payment for a house in Westchester. We thought it would be nice if we presented one big check from the Palmer family." I paused. "One big check?" "Yes. So whatever you're planning to give, you can just transfer it to my account, and I'll add it to the total. That way it looks more substantial." I saw the trap immediately. If I gave my money to her, it would disappear into the Palmer family gift. My name wouldn't be on it. It would just be, "From Mom and Dad and Anthony." "I'd prefer to give my gift separately," I said. My mother frowned. "Anthony, don't be difficult. It's cleaner this way." "It's not about being clean," I said. "I've been saving for a long time. I want to give it to them myself." Julian looked up from his phone. "How much are we talking, bro? $500? Just Venmo Mom and save the hassle." $500. He thought that was the ceiling of my capability. "It's a bit more than that," I said calmly. "Well," my mother sniffed. "Whatever it is, I'm sure it's a lovely gesture. But really, Anthony, separate checks are so tacky. It looks disjointed. I'm giving it separately, Mom. That's final." She glared at me. "Fine. Have it your way. Just don't embarrass us with something cheap." I didn't say anything. I just touched the pocket where I kept my bank receipt. $9,200. Almost there. Then came the engagement party. It was held at a rooftop bar in Manhattan. Very chic. Very expensive. I arrived on time, wearing my best suit, before I bought the Brooks Brothers one. I walked in and looked for the family table. I saw my parents sitting with the Whitmores. Julian and Isabella were holding court in the center. I walked over. "Hi everyone," I said. My mother looked at me like I was a waiter who had brought the wrong order. "Oh, Anthony," she said. "You're here." "Yeah, I'm here. Is there a seat?" She gestured vaguely toward the bar area. "The tables are reserved for the wedding party and immediate family." "I am immediate family," I said. "I'm the brother." "Well, we ran out of chairs at the main tables," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Why don't you grab a drink at the bar?" Cousin Beatrice is over there somewhere. I looked at the table. There were empty seats, but they weren't for me. I walked to the bar. I ordered a whiskey, neat. I stood there and watched my family laugh and toast with the Whitmores. I watched my father clap Mr. Whitmore on the back. I watched my mother fawning over Isabella's ring. I was close enough to hear, but far enough to be invisible. Mr. Whitmore asked, "So, Julian, your brother? What is his specialty?" Julian laughed. "Anthony? His specialty is penny pinching. The guy still drives a 2010 Civic. I keep telling him to upgrade, but you know, some people just lack ambition." The table laughed. My father laughed. My mother laughed the hardest. I gripped my glass so hard I thought it would shatter. Lack ambition? I was working 2 jobs. I was building a portfolio. I was saving 10 grand to give to you, you arrogant prick. I wanted to walk over there and throw my drink in his face. I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because I was still playing the long game. I thought, just wait. Wait until the wedding. Wait until I hand over that check. Then they'll see. Then they'll have to respect me. I finished my drink, put it on the counter, and walked out. No one noticed I left. That night, I went home and transferred the final $800 into my savings account. The balance read, $10,000. I stared at the screen. I had done it. I felt a mix of pride and nausea. I had the money. I had the ticket. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to the sirens outside my window, a thought crept into my mind. A dark, cold thought. What if it's not enough? What if nothing is ever enough? I pushed the thought away. It had to be enough. $10,000 was a significant amount of money. It was a down payment on a car. It was a chunk of a mortgage. It was respect in paper form. I went to the bank the next day and got the cashier's check. I held it in my hands. Felt heavy. Not physically, but metaphorically. It carried the weight of 3 years of missed parties, cold toes, and lonely dinners. I bought a thick, cream-colored card. I wrote a message inside. "Dear Julian and Isabella, wishing you a lifetime of happiness. Love, Anthony." Simple. Classy. I sealed the envelope. I was ready, or so I thought. The week of the wedding was chaotic. The group chat, which included my parents, Julian, and me, was blowing up with schedules, dress codes, and last-minute demands from my mother. Mother of the groom dress fitting at 2 p.m. Everyone needs to be at the venue by 10 a.m. Saturday for photos. Julian, make sure you pick up the rings. I noticed I wasn't assigned any tasks. Usually, the brother of the groom helps out, picks up guests from the airport, helps with the setup. Nothing. I was treated like a guest, a distant guest. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was scheduled for Friday night at an exclusive Italian restaurant in Greenwich. I had requested the afternoon off work. I had my suit pressed. On Thursday afternoon, I got a text from my mother. "Hi Anthony, just a heads up, the rehearsal dinner tomorrow is strictly for the wedding party and the parents. Very intimate, so you have the night off. Enjoy a free evening in the city." I stared at my phone. The wedding party. That meant the bridesmaids and groomsmen. Julian had 6 groomsmen. They were all his frat brothers or work buddies, guys he had known for a few years. They were invited. I wasn't. I called my mother immediately. "Mom, you can't be serious," I said when she answered. "Anthony, I'm in the middle of a meeting with the florist," she said, annoyed. "You're uninviting me to the rehearsal dinner? I'm the groom's only brother." "It's not uninviting, Anthony. You were never technically on the list. It's a small venue. We have to prioritize the people who have roles in the ceremony. So Brad from the frat house has a role, but I don't? Brad is a groomsman. He's standing up with Julian. It's protocol. I should be a groomsman, Mom. Why am I not a groomsman?" "Oh, stop it. We discussed this. Julian wanted his friends. It's his day. Don't make this about you." "I'm not making it about me. I'm asking why I'm being excluded from a family event." "It's not a family event. It's a rehearsal. You don't have anything to rehearse. You're just sitting in the audience. Look, I have to go. The hydrangea arrangements are wrong. I'll see you on Saturday. Don't be late. She hung up. I sat in my office chair, staring at the black screen of my phone. My coworker, Sarah, different Sarah, rolled her chair over. You okay, Anthony? You look like you're gonna throw up. I'm fine, I said. Just family stuff. That night, my Aunt Sarah called me. Aunt, she said. Her voice was low, serious. I need to tell you something. What is it, Aunt Sarah? I just got off the phone with your mother. She was bragging about how she handled the guest list. Yeah, I know. I'm not invited to the rehearsal. It's worse than that, Aunt. She was talking about the reception seating chart. My stomach tightened. What about it? She said she moved you. Moved me where? To the back. She didn't say exactly, but she said, I solved the Anthony problem. Those were her words. The Anthony problem. I felt a cold chill. I'm a problem? She's worried about you interacting with the Whitmore's important guests. She thinks you're going to, I don't know, bore them? Or look poor. The sick Anthony. Honestly, if I were you, I wouldn't go. I have to go, I said. I have the gift. I have to show them. Honey, that money. They don't deserve it. You know that, right? It's not about what they deserve, I said. It's about who I am. I'm not going to let them erase me. Okay, she sighed. But watch your back. Catherine is up to something. I didn't sleep much that night. I tossed and turned, thinking about the Anthony problem. At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. Marcus was an old buddy of mine from college. By sheer coincidence, he was working for the event planning company that was handling the wedding. He was on the logistics team. Message from Marcus. Dude, you need to see this. I shouldn't be sending this, I could get fired. But this is messed up. Attached was a photo. It was a picture of the master seating chart, the one the planners use. It showed the layout of the reception tent. Round tables with names printed on them. I zoomed in. Table 1, the head table. Bride, groom, parents. Table 2, Whitmore VIPs. Table 3, Palmer relatives. I scanned table 3. Aunt Sarah was there. My cousins were there. My name wasn't there. I scanned the whole chart. Table 10, table 20, table 30. My name wasn't on any table. Then I saw it. In the margin of the chart, in red ink, was a handwritten note. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was my mother's jagged, sharp cursive. The note read, Anthony Palmer - limited access badge. No meal. Staff. Do not seat. I stared at the image. The pixels seemed to burn into my retinas. No meal. Do not seat. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an oversight. It wasn't a fire code issue. It was a direct order. My mother had taken a pen and manually crossed me out of existence. She had decided that feeding her own son was a waste of resources. I sat there in the dark. The anger didn't come immediately. What came first was a strange sense of clarity. For years, I had been fighting a fog. I had been wondering if I was crazy. Maybe I am just sensitive. Maybe I am just complaining. But this was evidence. This was proof. They didn't love me. They didn't even like me. To them, I was a prop, a nuisance, a problem to be managed with a gray badge and an empty stomach. I saved the image. I emailed it to myself. Then I walked over to my printer. I printed the photo. I printed the text messages where my mother asked for the money early. I put the papers in my briefcase. Then I picked up the cream-colored envelope with the $10,000 check. A normal person would have torn up the check. A normal person would have stayed home. But I wasn't feeling normal. I was feeling something dangerous. I was going to go to that wedding. I was going to wear that gray badge. I was going to let them humiliate me one last time. And then, when the moment was right, I was going to burn their perfect little world to the ground. Which brings us back to the hedge. After my mother walked away, leaving me with the no-plate bombshell, I stood there for a minute, composing myself. I checked my pocket. The check was there. The folded papers with Marcus's photo were there. I walked to the ceremony area. It was set up on the great lawn. Rows of white wooden chairs with velvet cushions facing a massive floral archway. An usher, a young kid who looked terrified, looked at my gray badge. Sir? Limited access guests are back there. He pointed to the very last row. Behind the last row of wooden chairs, there was a small line of metal folding chairs. The kind you see at a PDA meeting. Of course, I said. I walked past my family. I saw my father sitting in the front row, looking dignified in his tuxedo. I saw Aunt Sarah in the second row. She turned, saw me, and her eyes widened. She motioned for me to come sit next to her. I shook my head and pointed to my badge. She looked confused. I sat in the metal folding chair. It was cold. I was the only person back there. A few staff members were standing nearby, whispering. The ceremony began. The music swelled. Isabella walked down the aisle. She looked beautiful, I'll give her that. Julian looked like a model from a GQ spread. They exchanged vows. My mother dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief, performing the role of the weeping, joyous mother perfectly. When the ceremony ended, the guests applauded. Julian and Isabella kissed. They walked back down the aisle, beaming. As the guests moved toward the reception tent, a massive, glowing structure with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, I stood up. I joined the flow of the crowd. I wanted to see how far I could get. At the entrance to the tent, there was a checkpoint. The same security guard from the front gate was there. He stopped a couple in front of me, checked their gold badges, and smiled. Welcome, table 14. Then he saw me. He saw the gray badge. He stepped in front of me, blocking the path. He didn't smile. Sir, he said, this area is for gold access guests only. I just want to drop off my gift, I said, lifting the envelope. Gift table is inside, he said. I can take it for you. No, I said. I need to put it in the box myself. It's valuable. He hesitated. I can't let you in, sir. Strict orders. Just then, my mother appeared. She had been hovering near the entrance, greeting the VIPs. She saw the commotion and rushed over. Anthony, she hissed. What are you doing? I told you to leave. I'm trying to give my gift. Mom, I said loudly. A few heads turned. Lower your voice, she said. Give it to the guard. He'll put it in. I want to see the reception, Mom. I want to see where I'm not sitting. You are making a scene, she said, her eyes darting around. Leave. Now. Is there a problem here? The voice was cool, authoritative, and terrifying. It was Eleanor Whitmore. Isabella's mother stepped out of the tent. She was a tall woman with silver hair and eyes that could cut glass. She looked at my mother, then at the guard, then at me. Mrs. Whitmore? My mother stammered, her face flushing pink. No problem. My son Anthony was just leaving. He's feeling unwell. I feel fine, I said. Eleanor looked at my badge. Her eyes narrowed. Limited access? I didn't know we had different tiers of guests. It's just logistics, my mother said, sweating now. It means I don't get a meal, I said. I looked directly at Eleanor. My mother cut me from the catering list to make room for Julian's business partners. The crowd around us had stopped moving. The silence was back. That heavy, suffocating silence. Is that true, Patricia? Eleanor asked, using my mother's legal name. She hated the name Patricia. Of course not, my mother lied. Anthony is confused. He's been under a lot of stress. I have the note, I said. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded paper. The photo Marcus had sent me. I unfolded it. This is the seating chart, I said, holding it up so Eleanor, and the 20 people standing nearby, could see. That's your handwriting, Mom. Guest will receive limited access badge. No meal. Do not seat. My mother went pale. She looked like a ghost. Julian and Isabella had walked back to see what the holdup was. What the hell is going on? Julian demanded. Anthony, Why are you ruining my wedding? I'm not ruining anything, I said. I'm just clarifying the logistics. I turned to Julian. I came here today to give you this. I held up the cream envelope. I spent 3 years saving for this, Julian. 3 years of working 2 jobs. 3 years of eating ramen. 3 years of wearing cardboard in my shoes. I opened the envelope. I pulled out the check. $10,000. A gasp rippled through the crowd. 10 grand is a lot of money, even for rich people. But for a failure like me, it was a statement. I wanted to prove I was good enough, I said, my voice shaking slightly now. I wanted to buy my way into this family. But I realized something today, standing in the back row with the folding chairs. I looked at my father, who was standing behind my mother, looking at his shoes. Coward. You can't buy what isn't for sale, I said. And your respect? Your love? It's not that I can't afford it. It's that it's counterfeit. It's not real. I turned to Eleanor. Mrs. Whitmore, I apologize for the disruption. You have a beautiful home. Then I looked at my mother. You wanted the space? You got it. You wanted to save money on a plate? You saved it. I held the check up one last time. And you won't be needing this. I folded the check and put it back in my pocket. Anthony, my mother shrieked. It wasn't a sophisticated cry. It was a guttural scream of greed. That is for the couple. You can't take it back. Watch me, I said. You are stealing from your brother. Julian shouted, stepping forward aggressively. Eleanor Whitmore stepped in between us. She put a hand on Julian's chest. Stop, she commanded. She looked at my mother with an expression of pure disgust. Patricia, Eleanor said, her voice ice cold. You denied your own son a seat at his brother's wedding, while expecting a $10,000 gift from him. It was a misunderstanding, my mother sobbed. It was cruelty, Eleanor said, and the Whitmores do not tolerate cruelty. She turned to me. Go, Anthony, she said softly. Keep your money. Buy yourself something nice. You deserve better than this. Thank you, I said. I turned around. The sea of guests parted for me. I walked down the white gravel path, past the Rolls-Royces, past the roses. I didn't look back. I walked fast. My heart was pounding in my chest like a sledgehammer. Adrenaline was flooding my system. I felt lightheaded, dizzy, but incredibly powerful. I reached the main gate. My taxi driver, Sal, hadn't gone far. He was parked down the road, eating a sandwich. I had told him to wait, just in case, but I didn't think I'd be back in 20 minutes. I waved him down. He pulled up. Back already? He asked, chewing. Food that bad? Didn't stay for the food, I said, opening the door. Drive. Just drive. Wait, I heard shouting. I looked back toward the estate. Julian was running down the driveway. He was sprinting, his tuxedo tails flapping in the wind. He looked ridiculous. Anthony, stop. Sal looked at me in the rearview mirror. You want me to stop? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to leave him in the dust. But another part of me, the part that needed closure, wanted to hear what he had to say. Give him a second, I said. Julian reached the car, breathless. His face was red. He grabbed the door handle. What the hell is wrong with you? He panted. Do you have any idea what you just did? I saved myself 10 grand, I said calmly. You humiliated Mom. You humiliated me. Eleanor is furious. She's threatening to call off the reception toasts. Dad is having palpitations. Not my problem, Julian. Not your? We are family. You don't do this to family. I laughed. It was a dry, harsh sound. Family? I said. Family gives you a seat at the table. Family doesn't give you a gray badge that says, limited access. Family doesn't cross your name out in red ink. I didn't know about the badge, he lied. I could tell he was lying. His eyes shifted to the left. Don't lie to me, I said. You knew. You always know what Mom does. You just didn't care because it benefited you. You wanted the CEO there. You wanted the prestige. I was just the sacrifice. Look, he said, his voice changing tone. He went into salesman mode. Let's fix this. Just come back. Hand over the check. Make a little apology speech, say you were drunk or something. We can smooth this over. I'll make sure you get a seat. We'll pull a chair up to the head table. I stared at him. He really thought I was that pathetic. He thought he could snap his fingers and I would fall back in line. You just don't get it, I said. I'm not negotiating for a seat, Julian. I'm leaving the table. Anthony, please, he said, desperation creeping in. Isabella is crying. Her dad is asking questions about my finances. They think we're monsters. Well, I said, rolling up the window, if the shoe fits. Anthony, don't you dare drive away. Anthony, go, I told Sal. Sal stepped on the gas. The taxi peeled away, leaving my brother standing in a cloud of dust, looking smaller and smaller in the rear window. My phone started ringing immediately. Mom, Dad, Mom. I watched the screen light up. I didn't answer. Then my father left a voicemail. I waited a minute, then listened to it. Anthony, his voice sounded weak, shaky. Your mother is inconsolable. She's on the floor of the bridal suite. You have to come back. You have to make this right. Why do you always have to be so difficult? Just come back and apologize. Apologize. He wanted me to apologize. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't ask how it felt to be treated like garbage. He just wanted the boat to stop rocking. He wanted his quiet life back. I felt the last tether snap. That invisible cord that binds a child to their parents, no matter how abusive they are. It broke. I texted him back. 2 words. I'm done. Then I blocked his number. I blocked Mom. I blocked Julian. I leaned back in the seat. I took a deep breath. The air in the taxi smelled like old leather and pine air freshener. But to me, it smelled like freedom. I touched my pocket. The check was still there. Where to? Sal asked. Queens, I said. Take me home. You got it, boss. I looked out the window at the Connecticut countryside rushing by. The stone walls, the manicured lawns, the world I was never allowed to be a part of. It was over. The game was over. I wasn't the spare anymore. I wasn't the limited access guest. I was Anthony, and I had $10,000 and a whole new life to start. The silence that followed my departure wasn't empty. It was heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one standing in the rain. I was watching it from a safe distance. I spent the first 24 hours in my apartment in Queens, phone off, blinds drawn. I slept. I don't mean I napped. I mean I slept for 14 hours straight, the kind of deep, comatose sleep your body demands when it has been running on cortisol and adrenaline for 3 decades. When I woke up on Sunday morning, the sun was hitting the peeling paint on my ceiling, and I felt something strange. I wasn't scared. I wasn't anxious. I was light. I turned my phone on. The notifications flooded in like a tidal wave. 47 missed calls. 82 text messages. Mom, Anthony, pick up. This is an emergency. Mom, you are being selfish. Dad, your mother is ill. Call us. Julian, you need to fix this. Eleanor is talking about reviewing the trust fund. Call me now. I scrolled through them, detached, like I was reading a script for a soap opera I didn't watch anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't feel the urge to explain myself. That was the old Anthony. The new Anthony had a $10,000 check in his wallet and a spine made of steel. Monday morning, I walked into my bank. It was the same branch where I'd deposited every scrap of extra cash for 3 years. The same teller, Mrs. Gable, was there. She was a nice lady who always gave me a lollipop even though I was a 32-year-old man. Mr. Palmer, she smiled. Back so soon? I thought you withdrew that big check for a wedding. I did, I said, sliding the cream envelope across the counter. Change of plans, Mrs. Gable. The wedding was over budget. She looked at me, confused, then opened the envelope. She saw the check. Oh my, she said. You want to redeposit this? Yes, please. She typed on her keyboard. The machine whirred. She stamped the back of the check. Void. I stared at that word. Void. It was beautiful. It meant the contract was broken. It meant the obligation was gone. And Mrs. Gable? I said. I'd like to move this to a high-yield savings account. I'm thinking of saving for a down payment. For me. That sounds like a wonderful idea. She beamed. Walking out of that bank, seeing my balance back in the 5 figures, was better than any therapy session. I bought myself a coffee, a fancy one, an oat milk latte that cost $7, and I didn't feel a shred of guilt. That evening, Aunt Sarah came over. She brought Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. She looked exhausted but smug. Spill it, I said, handing her a glass. What happened after I left? Sarah took a long sip of wine and grinned. Oh, Anthony, it was biblical. It was the red wedding without the swords. She told me everything. Apparently, after my taxi disappeared, Eleanor Whitmore didn't let it go. She pulled my parents and Julian into a private parlor inside the estate. Sarah wasn't in the room, but the door was thin, and Eleanor has a voice that carries. She tore them apart, Sarah said, picking up a dumpling. She told Catherine that a family that treats its own blood like garbage isn't a family she wants to do business with. She actually used the word business. She knows Catherine sees this marriage as a transaction. And Julian? I asked. Julian tried to blame it on a miscommunication with the wedding planner. Eleanor called the planner into the room. The planner showed them the email from your mother, the one confirming the limited access badge. Julian went silent. Did they let me eat? I asked, half joking. The reception went on, Sarah said, but the vibe was dead. Half the guests were whispering about the brother who walked out. Catherine spent the whole night in the bathroom crying, or pretending to cry to get sympathy. Richard just sat at the head table drinking scotch like it was water. And Isabella, poor girl. She looked at Julian like she'd never seen him before. She'll stay with him, though, I said. Maybe, Sarah shrugged. But the power dynamic has shifted. The Whitmores know exactly who the Palmers are now. They aren't the respectable suburban family anymore. They're the climbers who starve their own son. That kind of stain doesn't wash out with champagne. Hearing that gave me a grim satisfaction. I didn't want their lives ruined, not really. I just wanted them to feel a fraction of the smallness I had felt my entire life. 2 weeks later, the second shoe dropped. Or rather, the second door opened. I was at work, buried in a complex audit for a construction firm. My boss, Mr. Henderson, knocked on my door. Mr. Henderson is a man of few words. He's old school, believes in hard work, integrity, and black coffee. Palmer, he said, my office. I grabbed my notepad, my heart doing a little nervous flutter. Did I mess up the audit? I sat across from his massive mahogany desk. He looked at me over his spectacles. I heard a rumor, he said. I froze. Oh God, did my mother call him? She's crazy enough to call my boss. A rumor, I squeaked. I played golf with Arthur Whitmore this weekend, Henderson said. My blood ran cold. Of course. Greenwich is a small town for rich people. Arthur told me a very interesting story about his daughter's wedding, Henderson continued. About a young man who stood up for himself against some pretty poor treatment. A young man who refused to be disrespected, even by his own kin. I looked down at my hands. Mr. Henderson, I'm sorry if that brings any... Stop, he said. He leaned forward. Arthur told me that young man was you. Is that true? Yes, sir. Henderson nodded slowly. Integrity, Palmer, is a rare commodity these days. Most people would have eaten the dirt just to stay in the will. You walked away. He opened a folder on his desk. I've been looking for a new lead auditor for the Tri-State Division. I needed someone with a backbone. Someone who can look a client in the eye and tell them their numbers don't add up, even when they're screaming. I think I found him. He slid a paper across the desk. Promotion. Senior lead. 12% raise. Company car allowance. Effective immediately. I stared at the paper. The numbers blurred. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. I know you won't, he said. Now get out of here. And Palmer? Buy yourself a better suit. I walked out of that office feeling 10 feet tall. My family had tried to make me small, to shrink me down until I fit into their little box of limited access. But the world, the real world, saw me differently. With the promotion and the saved 10 grand, I made my next move. I moved. I found an apartment in Astoria. It wasn't a palace, but it was light years away from the basement studio I'd been rotting in. It was a one-bedroom on the top floor of a walk-up. It had hardwood floors that creaked in a welcoming way, and most importantly, it had a massive bay window that looked out over a park. Actual sunlight. I spent a weekend moving in. Sarah helped me. We bought plants, succulents, because I heard they're hard to kill, like me. We bought a rug that tied the room together. On the first night in my new place, I sat on my balcony. I watched the kids playing soccer in the park below. I drank a beer. I realized I hadn't thought about Julian or my mother in 2 days. But I knew I needed to close the loop. They were still texting. Still leaving voicemails that ranged from weeping apologies to veiled threats about being cut out of the will, as if there was anything left after the wedding. I opened my laptop. I sat at my new desk, a sturdy oak desk I bought with my own money. I wrote an email. Subject: regarding the future to Mom, Dad, Julian. I'm writing this to save us all some time. I've received your messages. I've heard the voicemails. I am not angry anymore. Anger requires energy, and I am no longer willing to spend my energy on you. For 32 years, I tried to earn a seat at this table. I thought if I was good enough, successful enough, or generous enough, you would finally see me. I realize now that the problem wasn't my vision. It was yours. You don't have a son named Anthony. You have a prop named Anthony. And I am resigning from that role. I am keeping the money. I am keeping my dignity. And I am keeping my distance. Do not come to my apartment. Do not call my job. If you continue to harass me, I will involve the police. This isn't a negotiation. It's a boundary. I wish you well. I hope the wedding photos turned out beautiful. I hope they were worth it. Anthony. I hovered my mouse over the send button. A part of me, the little boy who just wanted his mom to hug him, hesitated. Is this too harsh? Is this final? Then I remembered the gray badge. No meal. I clicked send. I closed the laptop. I took a deep breath. The air in my new apartment was fresh. It smelled of potting soil and floor wax and the takeout Thai food waiting on the counter. It smelled like my life. 6 weeks later, the leaves in the park across the street were turning gold and crimson. Autumn in New York is something special. It's a season of change, of shedding the old to prepare for the new. It felt appropriate. Aunt Sarah was sitting on my couch, nursing a cup of tea. She had visited every Sunday since the wedding. We had developed a new tradition, Sanity Sundays. We'd eat breakfast, watch bad movies, and just exist in a space where no one was judging us. I brought you something, she said, reaching into her tote bag. She pulled out a framed photograph. I took it. It was an 8 by 10 glossy print. It was from my college graduation in 2016. In the photo, I was wearing my gown, holding my diploma, and grinning like an idiot. My arm was around Aunt Sarah. We were the only 2 people in the frame. The background was blurry, just a sea of strangers, but our smiles were sharp and clear. I found this in my attic, she said softly. I've kept it all these years. I always hated that day because of what they did to you. But looking at it now, I see something else. What do you see? I asked, tracing the glass with my thumb. I see a survivor, she said. I see a young man who showed up for himself when no one else would. You look happy there, Aunt. Despite everything, you look happy. I looked closer. She was right. There was a resilience in that smile, a defiance. I used to hate this photo, I admitted. It reminded me that I was alone. You were never alone, Sarah said firmly. You just looked for love in the wrong warehouse. You were knocking on a door that was bricked up, honey. But I was standing right there at the side entrance with the key. I hung the picture on the wall above my desk, right next to the gray badge. Yes, I kept the badge. Some people might think that's morbid. Why keep a symbol of your humiliation? But to me, that gray plastic rectangle wasn't a symbol of shame. It was a trophy. It was the catalyst. Without that badge, without that specific petty act of cruelty, I might still be there. I might still be eating the crumbs from their table, hoping for a scrap of affection. I might have given them the money. I might have spent the next 10 years trying to buy a love that was never for sale. That badge set me free. We sat in silence for a while, watching the wind blow the leaves outside. Have you heard from them? I asked. I hadn't checked my blocked folder in weeks. Catherine called me yesterday, Sarah said. She's playing the victim to anyone who will listen. She tells people you're having a mental breakdown and that's why you've cut them off. She can't admit the truth, Anthony. If she admits she hurt you, she has to admit she's flawed. And narcissists can't do that. It would shatter them. And Julian? Julian is struggling, she said with a grimace. Isabella is pregnant. I blinked. Wow. Yeah. But apparently, the Whitmores have insisted on a prenup. Postnup, actually. They're locking down the assets. They don't trust him. They think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Julian is on a very short leash. I felt a pang of pity. Not enough to call him, but enough to realize that being the golden child is its own kind of prison. He was trapped in a world of expectations and conditional love. If he slips, he falls. I had already fallen, and I found out the ground was solid enough to stand on. I'm glad I'm out, I said. You're not just out, Aunt, Sarah said, squeezing my hand. You're free. I looked around my apartment. I thought about my job, my promotion, my bank account, my peace of mind. I realized that family isn't about whose DNA you share. That's just biology. That's an accident of birth. Real family is about who shows up. Real family is the aunt who cheers for you when your parents are on vacation. Real family is the boss who recognizes your integrity. Real family is the taxi driver who waits for you. Real family gives you a full access pass, not a limited one. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the city. I felt a sense of calm that went down to my bones. I had lost a brother, a mother, and a father, but I had found myself. And honestly, that was the best trade I ever made. Thank you for walking this road with me. I know it wasn't an easy story to hear. It wasn't easy to live. But I wanted to share it because I know I'm not the only one holding a limited access badge in my pocket. If you are reading this and you see yourself in my story, if you are the one always giving and never receiving, the one making excuses for people who hurt you, the one waiting for a someday that never comes, please listen to me. You cannot love people into loving you. You cannot buy respect. And you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, even if those people are your parents. Boundaries are not punishments. They are protection. It is okay to walk away from a table where respect is not on the menu. It is okay to choose yourself. I want to hear from you. What is the one lesson you are taking away from my journey? Or, if you've ever had to walk away from toxic family, how did you find the courage? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, or just type the word good if you think I made the right choice. Your validation means more than you know. It reminds me that while I may have lost my biological family, I found a community of people who understand what real worth looks like. Take care of yourselves. You are worth the full price of admission.